So Patrick Mahomes was lights out today at practice, making several highlight reel type off-script throws. Then running backs Deneric Prince and Isaiah Pacheco recently had some fantastic catches. Travis Kelce looks goated as ever, and when you combine that with the receiving core starting to really get into a rhythm and actually track down and catch the ball, things are shaping up to be scary for the rest of the NFL as the Chiefs enter the season eyeing the three-peat. So let's talk about it as I look at standout plays, a certain wide receiver climbing the ranks, and more. But first, how about those? All right, first up, I wanted to mention that I said today's practice, Friday, was going to be a lighter 10-10-10 practice, but it was actually a fully padded practice with the 10-10-10 practice going to take place on Sunday after the team gets tomorrow off. And with that, we got a lot to talk about, but I did want to remind you guys I switched t-shirt carriers to athlete logos. These guys are awesome, much faster shipping, better quality shirts, and the Dad Bod season shirts are in, so let's freaking go. Link in the description if you want to check out some merch. Okay, we have some positive progress for cornerback Jaylen Watson, who recently returned from the PUP list. He was seen out there for the first time today in full pads, wearing a yellow non-contact jersey for the time being, but still, it's a positive sign in the right direction. If you remember last year, Pacheco had a similar surgery as Watson, labrum repair on the shoulder, and spent most of training camp in one of those "do not touch me" yellow jerseys, so Watson might be wearing one of those for quite a while. And for what it's worth, Watson did get some work in with the second-team defense during 7-on-7, and then even saw some looks with the first-team defense during 7s as well. He's a guy that's definitely going to be out there competing for that cornerback 2 spot alongside McDuffie, so we'll have to keep our eyes on him and see how he progresses. More on the cornerback room here in a bit, but first, left guard Joe Thuney is another guy recently off the PUP list, and while he could be seen getting pad work in here earlier on in practice, he still wasn't a full go and participating in team drills. And with Thuney not working in during the team's portion of practice, Mike Caliendo has been the guy filling in at the left guard spot in his stead. And to start today's practice, that was no exception. Kingsley Suamataia was once again the left tackle with the ones, and Caliendo worked in at left guard. However, here's something interesting. Wanya Morris was actually seen with the second-team offense at the left guard spot, then a bit later eventually worked in with the first-team offense at left guard. So the line looked like Kingsley Suamataia at left tackle, Wanya at left guard, then Creed, Trey Smith, and Jawan Taylor on the far right. I mean, that's certainly interesting. Wanya played both left and right tackle in college, starting 19 games on the left and 8 on the right, but reportedly has been working in some at guard during OTAs with Joe Thuney out. I'm not sure what the Chiefs have planned for Wanya, but they are certainly exploring all options for him at the moment. I would think if he doesn't earn the starting spot at left tackle, he would be a swing tackle, sort of like Prince Tega Wanogho, but some have said they like the idea of Wanya kicking in at the guard spot here at the NFL level. And with Trey Smith on a contract year and a potential out in Joe Thuney's contract after this year, I would think offensive line coach Andy Heck would like to explore every single possibility at that guard spot. Andy Reid was asked about this today, and he said Kingsley hasn't necessarily won the left tackle spot. Andy Heck is moving players all around right now. Maybe Kingsley will move around later, but he's a rookie, and they want him to purely get those left tackle reps for the time being. And with Wanya, they're just seeing what he has there at the left guard spot. It's nothing permanent, more just exploring options on players and their versatility. It's worth noting, though, that sometime during practice when Wanya was working in at left guard, he did something to his shoulder. Andy Reid said after practice that they were getting his shoulder looked at, but Wanya was seen in the medical tent during practice and ended up leaving practice early in the front of the cart. And once Wanya left practice, it was Caliendo who went back to the starting left guard spot, filling in again for Joe Thuney, who should ultimately eventually be back out there in the starting left guard spot. So hopefully the shoulder issue with Wanya is indeed minor because he's a valuable depth piece along the offensive line. Next up, we have the same 2 players absent today that also were gone yesterday, with those being wide receiver Justyn Watson, foot and defensive end BJ Thompson, who's on the NFI list. And with Justyn Watson's continued absence, I don't want to make a huge deal of it, but I don't like seeing him gone and hope it's nothing too serious in regards to his foot. The Chiefs like to be hush-hush about their injuries, so while they said he was day-to-day, I hope it is indeed minor and Justyn Watson finds himself back out there sooner rather than later. Then, tight end Isaiah Gathings, who tweaked his hamstring a couple days ago, was also not seen out there, and when I saw the newly signed tight end Geor'Quarius Spivey wearing the same number today that Gathings was wearing a couple days ago, I'm going to surmise that Gathings was the guy that got waived from the roster to make room for Spivey. There's no official report on that yet, just my best guess. And while I talked about Spivey at the end of yesterday's video, they call him GQ. In case you missed it, he had a successful tryout yesterday, and the 6'5", 238-pounder that ran a 4.62 40 impressed enough to be added to the roster. He spent time both at Mississippi State and TCU, though he was actually sadly ineligible to play his senior year due to an eligibility dispute. So he went undrafted and now finds himself in St. Joseph, Missouri, sweating his you-know-what's off at Andy Reid's training camp. And I'm going to assume he's more of a camp body for the time being, but you never know. He could maybe impress enough to catch on with the practice squad after cutdowns. Next up, we have a new player added to the injury report to discuss here in a moment, with the list of those who were there but not practicing being as follows. Linebacker Nick Bolton, elbow, hopefully should be minor and he should be back out there sooner rather than later. Wide receiver Kadarius Toney, ankle. Safety Deon Bush, ankle. With the new addition being cornerback Kelvin Joseph, hamstring. Joseph has been rising over the past week or so, getting reps with the first-team defense, while Joshua Williams moved back to work with the second-team defense. And with cornerback Nazeeh Johnson still out with a hamstring tweak, Joseph was making the most of his opportunities. Well, he now joined Nazeeh Johnson as a bystander in today's practice, with Andy Reid describing it as a slight hamstring injury. So maybe Kelvin, like Nazeeh Johnson, will be back sooner rather than later. And with those injuries, Joshua Williams was once again seen working with the first-team defense in some capacity. Now, as far as those still on the PUP list, it's the same three players. Defensive tackle Derek Nottie, defensive end Charles Omenihu, and safety Justyn Reed. All three of these guys have missed all of training camp so far. Omenihu's was expected as he recovers from that ACL repair. Nottie hopefully is back soon after doing something to his triceps that has sidelined him during most of OTAs as well as camp. And then Justyn Reed is still dealing with that quad issue. However, he did take to Twitter last night with a simple message that said soon ... clock emoji. So I would take that to mean he will soon be returning. I think that would be a welcomed return because overall the secondary is getting a bit thin with Kelvin Joseph, Nazeeh Johnson, and himself out, as well as now safety Deon Bush. So to recap, Justin Watson was absent once again, as was BJ Thompson during his stint on the NFI list. Justyn Reed, Derek Nottie, and Charles Omenihu are still on the PUP, but we're out there watching. Then Nick Bolton, Kadarius Toney, Nazeeh Johnson, Kelvin Joseph, and Deon Bush were there, but didn't participate, and Wanya Morris is the only reported player that left practice early. Practice today was a hot one, with a couple players matching the temp and having a standout day. The first worth discussing is wide receiver Justyn Ross. He had a couple of nice catches today, and this is after he reportedly had his best day of camp yesterday. He caught all but one pass thrown his way on Thursday, being seen working more in with the first-team offense since both Justin Watson and Kadarius Toney are dealing with injuries. He caught two passes from Mahomes and continued to stack up another good day today. For example, he caught this fade pass from Mahomes in the end zone, making sure to get both feet in bounds, and that was with Trent McDuffie of all corners on him in coverage. Side note for a second about McDuffie, he didn't win that rep, but he did have this perfectly timed INT during a 1v1 against McCole Hardman deep down the field. McDuffie also had a near incredible one-handed INT while in coverage on tight end Jared Wiley. And for reference, Wiley is like 6'6". I think McDuffie is 5'11". So he went all the way up to get it, but sadly couldn't haul it in. It was another impressive rep, though, regardless, from cornerback one. But hey, back to Justyn Ross, the red zone target, because on this play, he had an out route with a closely trailing safety Jaden Hicks right near him. Yet a rolling out Mahomes hit him in the back corner of the end zone for another solid score. So Justyn Ross's stock continues to rise a bit here, with his odds of once again making the roster, the 53-man roster in particular, going up as injuries are rising and Ross is making the most of his opportunities. He's the only bigger-bodied receiver like that in the lineup, or the perceived to be starting lineup, and if they believe he's enough of a red zone threat, he could make the roster for that alone, kind of like Jody Fortson was used in particular packages and in the red zone, considering KC has really struggled, at least last year, in the red zone. The Chiefs were 19th in scoring touchdowns in the red zone, which is not great. This year, though, they should, fingers crossed, be better, and maybe someone like Justyn Ross could help with that. If not, they do have Jared Wiley as another potential red zone option. Now, the only player that could stop Justyn Ross in the red zone today was the rookie safety Jaden Hicks. He had a nice contested PBU against Ross in the corner of the end zone during 11-on-11. And then we got to talk about some Mahomes Magic that happened today. He had this doozy of a moment on this play here when he rolled all the way out. It was a designed rollout to the right, pump faking, biding his time, and at the last moment threw the ball to an awaiting Rashee Rice in the back of the end zone, touchdown Kansas City. Then this next play is just laughable in the truest sense of the word because Mahomes does things that literally make no sense, yet it works. Even when the defense is doing things right, it doesn't matter. Here's what happened. The pocket collapsed because Chris Jones absolutely worked Kingsley Suamataia over on this one. I mean, Kingsley was left standing there like, where'd he go? And with the pocket collapsing, Mahomes sprinted left, only to sort of shot put / wrist flick it to Mecole Hardman, who was working to get open on a scramble drill, and it found him perfectly. Nothing about that play should have worked, but it did, and it was freaking awesome. Obviously, we're just talking about practice here, but stuff like this is normal when it comes to Mahomes, so I'm sure this season we are going to see some more interesting highlight-type throws like this one. I have a good feeling of it. Next up, Xavier Worthy reportedly caught a deep ball against Casper the Friendly Ghost during installs, and of course the crowd really liked that. The deep ball is something KC has emphasized early on in camp and really all throughout OTAs, but that's not all Worthy can do. He then won this rep here on an inside route with Joshua Williams in coverage. Worthy also secured this touchdown grab here during 7-on-7 as he flew across the field, tracking the ball down without slowing down and hauling in the score. So when you combine Worthy's elite speed with his solid ability to track the ball in the air so far at camp, I truly hope that carries over into the season because that's going to be a welcomed help. Another wideout in Hollywood Brown had a nice catch here, snagging this pass from Mahomes on a crossing route to move the chains. And one thing I've noticed about Hollywood, especially over the past couple days, is that he really makes sure to secure the football before worrying about anything else, which is something you love to see considering last year's wideouts led the league in drops. Another guy with sure hands is the GOAT, tight end Travis Kelce, Mr. 99 Madden Club himself, winning his route here against Chamari Conner and reached out to secure the ball as he fell to the ground. So Chamari Conner didn't win that rep, but if you look at this rep here, Eddie High only caught the end of it here, but Mahomes tried to sidearm sling it to an awaiting Mecole Hardman, and Chamari Conner got his hand in there and knocked it away. So that was a very good rep there from the year 2 safety. Then Rashee Rice absolutely torched Keith Taylor on this 1v1 rep, cutting inside for the easy W. This is no real knock to Taylor here either. I just think Rice's release was that clean. A very impressive rep here, which of course makes me excited for Rashee heading into year 2 with the team. Just please don't get suspended this year. Speaking of Keith Taylor, though, he reportedly had a great practice yesterday with Charles Goldman of A to Z Sports saying that Taylor was a major standout, recording an impressive PBU and a dazzling INT during 7-on-7. And with the day that nice and injuries in the cornerback room continuing to pile up, he was getting some first-team reps in red zone today, which, as we just saw, they weren't all pretty, but Taylor is another guy out there trying to make the most of his opportunities due to a thinned-out cornerback room. Another player making the most of his opportunities so far has been running back Carson Steele, who they are using in a fullback, running back hybrid sort of a role. Andy Reid said Steele's doing a nice job doing all that's been asked of him out there as a fullback, but can also run the ball well. He then said Steele has had some good snaps for them, and it's been a surprise there. So Andy is pleasantly surprised with Carson Steele so far. He's also been getting some reps with the 1s and the 2s. The question is that enough to see the return of a fullback, even if it's in a hybrid role? Big Red also spoke about running back Isaiah Pacheco, saying he's ready to do whatever out there on offense. He can run, obviously, but he can also block, been working on his pass protection, and he can run routes. And he even noted that Clyde can do it too, making it seem like there's options there in pass protection, even with the pass protection merchant Jerick McKinnon not on the roster. Pacheco has been balling out at camp so far. He challenged Drew Tranquil to a 1v1 today and was amped all the way up afterwards. Pretty good rep there from him. He could then also be seen leaking out of the backfield to provide relief for Mahomes as a quick out with the blitz coming, scoring a touchdown. Matt McMullen also said he had an impressive catch out there today. Don't think we got that one on camera. But then yesterday, Pacheco had quite honestly an eye-popping catch down the left sideline. You can see it here. Leo Chanel in coverage. coverage. Pacheco did bobble the pass, but he maintained possession, and you can tell he's been working on the receiving aspect of his game, even reportedly working with the wide receiver coach in the offseason. So, I predict a career year coming for Pop as long as he can stay healthy in spite of his violent running style, and I think they're going to be able to use him in a plethora of ways here on the offense. Louis Reese-Zammit is another running back many have their eyes on, and he seems to have improved a bit in his pass protection, though still has a long way to go. You can see a rep here against Swayze Bozeman. I don't know if that's a win. I think it's a win, but either way, he's one of many players to watch during camp, yes, but especially in these preseason games. That's where I think we're really going to need to take a look at LRZ and his progress. Pacheco isn't the only one that could be seen catching passes, though, as Deneric Prince had a nice contested catch over Jack Cochran during 1v1s. He went up to get it, hauled it in. Freaking incredible rep from Deneric Prince, who has been getting basically every running back look immediately after Isaiah Pacheco, every single practice. Some say, hey, CEH is now running back 3 while Prince has already surpassed him. But I think it's more, they're trying to see what Deneric Prince has in year 2, where they already know what they have in CEH with him entering year 5. And with that, the Chiefs have tomorrow off, and we'll be back Sunday for that lighter 10-10-10 practice. So until then, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?